What I'll do is open our work session this evening. And this evening, we have our work session that's going to be focusing on Kids on the Block program. And Susan and Janet are here from our parks. And we have other guests this evening. So, Susan, I'll turn it over to you and those that are going to be presenting. And Remy is not here this evening, middle of crush. She'll probably call in for the council meeting, and Alan should be here, and then that's where we're at. Jeff is at a international city managers conference, if I'm not mistaken, and David will be joining us for council meeting tonight. So, again, welcome, and those that are visiting, we've had some dialogue already today on Kids on the Block, and so, but this is our work session just to be brought up on the program and some opportunities. So, Susan?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and councilors, I'm Susan Muir. I'm the Parks and Rec Director for McMinnville. From the staff today, the mayor mentioned Janet Adams is here. Janet has over a decade of experience working with the Kids on the Block program, so she's been a great resource in getting me up to speed in the last year about the program and the importance of it in the history in the community. So I'm just going to, and we'll introduce our consultants here in a second. I'm just going to kick it off. Why are we here tonight talking to you all for this work session? We're happy to be here, actually. This is about our after-school program, which has a 30-year history in McMinnville. People come by my office all the time and peek their head in and tell me that they were part of the founding group of Kids on the Block and how important it is to our community. And when you go to the sites, you can see that happening with the families and the kids involved in it. I want to talk a little bit about the funding. This will sound familiar to you from the budget. KOB is funded through in-kind resources from the school district, Linfield College work-study dollars, fees for the program participants, fundraising, and then the city's general fund. That's what comprises the funding for our Kids on the Block program. Several years ago, we started seeing a change in the funding structure. With the economic decline, some of the fundraising efforts also suffered a little bit and were fundraising and bringing in less dollars than they had historically. However, the Mayor's Ball and the Kids on the Block, Inc., and Janet's going to walk you through those 501c3 organizations in a second, had a large reserve of money that we were able to balance with for over the many years. And I think in the 15-16 budget, we thought we had about 7 more years worth of the same level of funding in the reserves that come in through those nonprofits. This year, we said we think we have about 3 to 4 years left before we really need to look at restructuring that funding piece. So all of that gives us an opportunity to really look at the program and assess it and look at the future. We've had a great 30 years with the Kids on the Block program, and now we need to look to the next 30 years. We typically report that the Kids on the Block program is about 90 to 95% self-supporting, and that is with a large contribution from the nonprofit fundraising that happens. So with that going off, we're going to see a decline in that cost recovery if we stick with the same model. As we were seeing all this happen in 2017, we went to the Kids on the Block, Inc. group, which holds the money that's been fundraised over the years, and asked them to fund a one-time assessment study for us to give us an outside look and bring in some experts in the field of after-school programming and provide us with some tools and some resources and really provide us that roadmap for the next 30 years. So we're in the middle of that process, and this is where we're at. As I mentioned in 2014-16, we realized there were funding structure changes to it. We also at the same time had city organization and leadership transitions. We brought Oregon Ask on board in July of 2018, and right now we're in the public outreach and research and data gathering stage. That's where the red star is on this. Ultimately, we're going to have a final report from Oregon Ask come to us. And then with that final report, we will be looking at preparing the fiscal year 19-20 budget, and we'll use the lens of the strategic plan after we get the final report. And then we'll talk to you all about implementation in 19 and through 2021. So the real purpose of tonight is to talk to you and gather some feedback from you all about the KOB program and introduce you to our consultants and give you a little bit more background. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Susan Zundell, who is the project manager, and she is from Oregon Ask, and they have brought a wealth of information, not only from scanning the Oregon landscape of after-school programs, but really a national perspective as well. So we're on the right path here, and we're looking forward to hearing the final report in a few months. So, Susan?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Susan Zundell from Oregon After School for Kids. We're part of a 50-state network of after-school networks all across the country, funded by the Mott Foundation. We're also the Oregon affiliate of the National After School Association. So we are your one-stop shop for all things after school, sort of a Fred Meyer of after-school resources, training, policy work, quality improvement, anything you need for an after-school program, we are there to help. On the team of, I will go into the after-school overview in just a second. I want to show you or share with you some of the folks in the room who are on the team. My expertise is in program quality for after-school programs. So I will be, I'm the project manager, but also looking at the programming of Kids on the Block and comparing it to quality standards for after school. So that'll be my part of the report. This is Jan Calvin. She's a facilitator, and she's been leading the focus groups for community input. She'll be working with you in a little while tonight to gather some input from you. And she also has a history of working with city government, so her expertise has been really valuable. Not just city, but Park and Rec. So, and we also have a few team members in the back. Sonia Svensson spent many years working for the Oregon Department of Education in the Office of Child Care, and so her expertise in finance and policy in child care is valuable to this project as well. And she's working with us on potential financial models for the future. Cassie Russell is back there, and she's a Health and Wellness Vista at Oregon Ask, so she's helping us with some research as we scan this after-school landscape. She's working on that. And Juan Soto is back there, and he is looking at populations who are not being served by Kids on the Block and trying to engage them in community input. So that's the team.
Janet, I think you're up.
I think I'm up.
Oh, you're up with
I think I'm up.
You're up.
I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview. Actually go to the next slide. I was going to play a video for you, but we've decided to skip that tonight. And included in your packet was this report from the After School Alliance from a few years ago with some really great data about what after school looks like in Oregon. And it's important to note that kids spend about 80% of their time out of school. So when we think about out of school time, it's a pretty critical part of their day. Only about 20% in school. And those are usually after school is usually between 3 and 6 p.m. And after school programs look really different all over the country and all over Oregon, with varying priorities from recreation to more strict academics or a STEM focus or specific sports and fitness focus. It's all, after school is very flexible and responsive to the community, which is one of the wonderful things about after school, is that ability to respond to what the community is looking for. But even though they have all these different models, they have some things in common, some benefits that they all have in common. They're all a safe place for kids to go in that 3 to 6 p.m. time. They're a great support to working families, allowing them to work and not worry about their kids or pursue their own education or their own development. In a lot of cities across the country, juvenile crime rates drop between 3 and 6 p.m. After-school programs provide enrichment. A lot of kids would not get the opportunities that they see in after-school programs, access to music and community members and field trips and those kinds of things. A lot of kids would not have access to those opportunities, so it really expands their world and inspires learning across their lifetime. And another really critical thing that we do in after school, no matter what the priority of the program, is the ability to build relationships. not only between kids and positive, safe adults, but also between peer groups. And that's a social skill that will serve them their whole life. And those critical people, if you think back to who were those critical people in my life that supported me and expanded my opportunities and brought things to me that I had no idea. I'm sure you're thinking of them right now. A lot of our kids are thinking about folks who supported them in after school, their coaches, their drama teachers. So that's those critical adults are in after school, and we have the flexibility to build those relationships. So after school is wonderful for many, many reasons, but of course that means the demand is very high. According to that report, you could see that back in 2014 when they collected this data, there were still 221,000 kids in Oregon looking for slots in after school. And Kids on the Block is serving 300 to 500 students a year, and there are 2,300 elementary school students in McMinnville. So there's a big gap, and there are a lot of kids, a lot of families in McMinnville looking for care. So that what we see across the country and across Oregon is fitting in with your community too. So we've got all these different funding models, we've got all these different benefits. There are just as many funding models as there are priorities and benefits. And one thing that's notable in this report is that there is significant interest in public funding among community members all across Oregon. Community funding is limited, though. There is some support from the federal government that comes through the state departments of education called 21st Century Community Learning Centers. And those come through the Department of Ed in Oregon as 5-year competitive grants, which are mostly awarded to school districts. And McMinnville was a school district that was awarded one this year. And they have more of an academic focus and some parent literacy and parent education goals and a high degree of reporting, as federal grants often have. Another stream of federal funding for after school comes through the Department of Human Services here in Oregon through employment-related daycare supporting low-income working families with subsidizing their child care costs. So families just pay a low copay and the provider bills the state. That also is limited. At the state level, there really isn't anything consistent coming from our state to fund after school. There are grants here and there to fund special projects or special content areas that sometimes leak into after school, but they are not necessarily, it's not anything that's sustainable or regular. And at the very local level, there are some city park and recs doing what you're doing with Kids on the Block, varying models of that. Even though there are other city park and recs doing it, their models look different they're responsive to their community. One example of very localized funding is in Multnomah County. They have the Portland Children's Levy, which is supporting after-school programs called SUN programs, Schools Uniting Neighborhoods. And that's not just after school, it's a full wraparound of family supports operating in the school, thinking of the school as a hub for the community for all kinds of resources. That is the rundown of after school. Thank you.
If I can, before Janet speaks, I meant to say that there was something in the newspaper that said we were looking for to fill a $2,000 gap. Just to clarify, it's almost $200,000. I wish we were coming to you with the $2,000 gap, but it's a little bit bigger than that, so I want to clarify that.
I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the history of Kids on the Block. Many of you have been around for that history or even participated in Kids on the Block, as Councilor Garvin did. So in 1999, that's right. In 1989, the Parks and Recreation Department ran an after-school program, and it was in 3 schools, served about 150 children. The goal was to provide a safe and fun place for kids to be after school. From a kid's perspective, it looked like a fun, wide-open playground, some crayons, and a couple of staff who were kind of playground supervisors, cafeteria supervisors, Pied Piper type of people. Shortly after that got started, Dale Tomlinson, which might be a name that sounds familiar. Dale Tomlinson is kind of the godfather of Kids on the Block. He is the one who saw an opportunity to build on what the Parks and Recreation Department already had. He could see that not only could it become an even deeper quality program, but could also serve more kids as long as there was community support around that. So Mr. Tomlinson was one of the visionaries who brought together the city and the school district and a group of community leaders, business leaders, to talk about what the possibilities could be if we all got together and started to build a program together. What would it be like? So this group of folks formed KOB Inc., and KOB Inc. hired a volunteer coordinator who worked in conjunction with the City Parks and Recreation Department. The volunteer coordinator brought in folks to do enriching activities with children. It might be somebody who had a rock collection. It might be somebody who knew how to knit and crochet. We had a beekeeper come and show kids all about making honey. So whatever interesting things the volunteer coordinator could bring together, that's part of what happened in KOB. Shortly after that, it was such a success, the City of McMinnville Parks and Recreation Department hired her. They created a position to work with Kids on the Block and a few other youth programs. So at that point, that person, the recreation manager, managed all aspects of the staff hiring and training and registration and the enrichment development part of things. And at this point in the program, from a kid's perspective, the program looked like there are a few more adults involved. There's a little more time structure involved. And although there's free time, there are some very definite learning and recreation goals that they have in mind. Over the years, the program and the funding have changed. I think of it a lot like a stone soup. Dale Tomlinson was the one who recognized that the Parks and Rec Department had a very nice pot to hold all of the kids in after-school program, but it could be so much more if only everybody would give a little. So Dale is kind of the magic stone to this, and he's the one who brought in folks from the school district. What can you offer? And City of McMinnville, what can we bring? And business people, community members, how can you add to this? And that's changed over the years. Sometimes the school district has had 21st century grants, sometimes they haven't. Sometimes we've had a wonderful mayor's ball, and sometimes we don't. At one point we had a very large annual donation coming from Spirit Mountain. We don't have that anymore. So there's been an ebb and flow both to the funding of this program and to the program part of it. Can you click the button? Thanks. So right now, from a kid's perspective, we have a 1 to 10 staff to student ratio, and it's a much more structured program where they start with a snack and then a little bit of free time outside on the playground to run out some of the wiggles. And then they rotate to 3 different stations: creation station, mainly arts and crafts, but possibly music or dance or poetry; fit zone, mainly sports and games, but might also be nutrition, and cooking; and then STEM and strategy, science, tech, engineering, math, and problem-solving skills. So they rotate to all 3 of those stations and have more staff around at this point. We hope to continue what we're doing with kids, and now is the perfect time to really look at that recipe. A stone soup recipe does ebb and flow, but now is the time to be intentional. What do we want that recipe to look like? How do we want that stew to taste at the end of the day? Who should the stew be serving? And that's why we're here today.
Yeah, so I wanted to share this project with you. So some of the tools that we're using to do the assessment, and this is a map that Juan, who I introduced earlier, created for us. He's using some GIS mapping software and you'll notice that's the city of McMinnville with Lafayette up there. And those we've mapped where the schools are and color-coded them to match where the participants are. So we've got non-resident participants. You can see up in Lafayette, they're squares because they are participants, but they are non-residents, and all the dots are resident participants and color-coded to their school. With this map, we can not only see where people live, but we can add layers on it to see what the median family income is, how much they spend on education spending, what's their disposable income, what are their other spending habits. So there's a lot of information we can gain from this kind of a tool. It's actually pretty cool. I don't know if we click on it, if we can actually get into it. Nope. Go back. But some of the other tools we're using for the project, this is just one of the many things we're using. We're also on the phone, calling all over the state to talk to after-school program providers about what their model is for how do they collect fees, how do they support students who need scholarships, what are their models. We're using community input sessions like we've been working on today. And we're using Oregon's quality standards for after-school and summer programs as a measure for program quality. And Sonia, who's working on our financial modeling, has got her own financial modeling software. I want you to feel very confident that we are doing a very broad and deep assessment of the community, who's using the program, who's not, and why, what are the barriers, just trying to explore all aspects of funding and participation and programming so that when we provide a report later with recommendations, that we've really done our homework and that we're giving a roadmap for success for the next 30 years. I'm going to swap spots with you, Jan.
Well, that's happening. We do have some questions, and I thought putting them in front of you might be helpful. So if you would take one and pass it down. Thank you.
If this would be helpful.
Thank you, Mayor. That's my preference. Get enough copies? Oh, there's another one. Okay. Well, Mayor and City Councilors, staff, and community participants, my name is Jan Calvin, and as Susan said, I do facilitation work amongst other things, and I'm really excited to get the opportunity to work with the community here in McMinnville in thinking about KOB and what it means to the community. And that's our first question really for you, is what does the program mean to you? What aspects of it are the most important, and maybe what's not so important? And we know that's not a consensus process. It's not City Council's position. It is really just a very personal question to say what rises to your thoughts about the importance of this program. So if we could just let you comment, we'll listen.
So let's just open it up. We'll have an opportunity to address these 4 questions. And again, as all of our work sessions are, it's an opportunity just to have dialogue and to increase our understanding and our learning. So anyone like to just share what does the KOB after school enrichment program mean to you? What about it is important and what is not important? So I'll just open it up and
start, Adam.
Yeah, sure. So after school enrichment program, what does that mean for myself and my family? Well, I have a 7th grader, so I recently had a graduate from the KOB program that went through Columbus and Grand Haven because we moved. I myself went to the memorial program, and I think what's real important is you talked about the activities. Whenever Reptile Guy came, there's always stories being told about what he got to hold, what he got to pet, all that kind of stuff. I think the 3 structured stations that you guys have is very well done. Back in the early years, it was kind of a free-for-all. You did your homework, and then you were in the open gym space. So I think that structured environment is very good. Accessibility is a big thing. Childcare is very expensive. And, I like the low cost of it, but there also needs to be some sustainability to it. And so if there could be a sliding scale of scholarships and, without getting too invasive into family life, but finding a way that we could find a happy medium that maybe somebody doesn't need a full scholarship, but, if it was at the current level and then people that could afford a full price that's more of a full cost recovery or close to, I think that would bring some sustainability to the program. And outside of that, I think it's great for lowering crime and youth staying, in a structured environment and they're not wandering home. I think 4th grade, I started walking home. We lived on 20th and Birch, so it wasn't that far from Memorial on 15th. But, there was some side routes older brother and I took every now and again. We were a grade apart, so we might not have taken the straight line home. And I think back in 1990, taking the straight line home or not was a little different than trying to take the straight line home in 2018 in the city. So it's a different time, and I think that if we want to keep our youth safe, that we should have, at a minimum, some sort of a enrichment program after school.
Thank you, Adam. Any other thoughts?
I have a
ahead,
few.
Wendy.
I don't have as deep of a history as Adam has with the program, but I agree with a lot of what he's talking about and what you guys have said. I appreciate that the program has changed as we've learned, and it sounds like a really well thought through program. I think one of the things for the community is Adam referred to how expensive it is for childcare, and to have an option to where our citizens can keep their kids safe and have a different experience for them than what is offered in school, like having the opportunity to take field trips and to have the reptile guy come, and is things that there's more pressure on the schools to not be able to do that because they're doing other things. So if we can keep that in mind, where it really is an opportunity to give kids a different experience than what we're able to give them in the school day. So those are just some of my thoughts. And definitely the aspect of having it be sustainable, to where the 30-year program is something that while we make it accessible, it isn't something that is sustainable financially. So the sliding scale sounds like an interesting thing to think about, but what are our long-term strategies for financing it that work for our community? So, I mean, it's similar things to Adam's thoughts, but I'm in full support of what you guys are doing here, and I think it has played a critical role in our community and will continue to. So thank you for all of your work.
Thank you.
Wendy. I'll chime in. I come from a family of educators, so education is very important to me, and it has been in my life. So I'm a staunch supporter that we provide education, but we also provide fun in our education, and that we have kind of intuitive learning models. And I think that's what Kids on the Block have really done, starting out maybe a little more as a place for kids to go instead of to a babysitter, but developing into what the school district was with some of their grants, bringing in the STEM and some of the other types of things that go on. Personally, my wife was available for the kids, so our kids did not go to Kids on the Block. But I have been a firm supporter of going to the mayor's ball and sitting on that committee for a number of years. And I just personally, to me, I think it's something that fits well within the parameters of our community of taking care and providing quality in everything that we do. I think times have changed quite a bit. Funding sources, curriculum, and the needs. And I think just as we're doing with our community assessment and strategies that we're going through, we need to do that. And so timeliness is perfect here, so that we can take a look and ask some of the tough questions: the cost of the program, and who needs to be a part of it, what is the demand, and what can we provide, and at what cost. These kinds of programs are, when they come through the Park and Recreation, typically we provide the locations, we provide the recreation, but there's a cost associated, and parents typically provide that. So we don't have a lot in the city to put towards scholarships and those types of things. As we've talked to the school districts, it's the same with them. They're trying to run a school program and not an after-school program, but they're very supportive of that. So the tough questions are going to be the cost, and how can we get sustainable funding, and then how do we structure it, and then know who we need to reach out to. And I know that comes into some of the other questions that we have, but that's kind of where I am, very supportive, and a willingness, if we can answer those questions and if we can tackle those needs. I think the city is positioned and desirous to continue. But we've got to ask some of those tough questions and understand where and what we want to have it look like.
Yes, well, I do hope with your strategic planning process that this is an opportune time to fold in this particular priority and consideration.
I'd echo Mayor Hill's comments. I haven't had any direct involvement in it with the kids and everything, but I've certainly listened to hundreds of testimonials through the years. And if there's a face to put on Kids on the Block, it'd be Jan's. I've followed her passionate work with the KOB for how many decades? And so wherever she is, that's where the passion is. So I'd go with that. It's a great, worthwhile program.
Great.
And I know there's been funding problems come up in the last few years. But it's a great, worthwhile project, and there's no question about it.
Okay.
I support it.
Right. So in moving to the second question that's in front of you, I'm going to restate it for the camera, if you will. So you know that we're looking at the income levels and populations as part of this assessment. So given that, is there a particular population that should be prioritized for participation in Kids on the Block?
Yes, the ward that I represent is been tagged as a high poverty area in Yamhill County, and I know that there are several areas in town that are similarly high poverty. About 1 in 4 of the people who I represent are Hispanic, and so from my point of view, prioritizing because childcare is so expensive, and because KOB provides such a leg up for people who are kind of in the lower economic scale, I think prioritizing serving that population, both of those populations, is critical. Every piece of data that I have seen has suggested that early investment in these kinds of programs has long-term benefits throughout the child's entire life. I can tell you that from my own experience, having had that type of opportunity growing up was hugely impactful on my own personal trajectory. So I would encourage you to kind of prioritize those folks.
Great. Thank you. Other thoughts?
Yeah, and I would add to that, of course, the program, having it be something that would be enriching for any demographic, but I think with regards to the realities that are being faced, we have examples on the dais here that if there's other options for the demographics, that they have more financial wealth, and maybe the mother is able to be home for the kids, or the father or whoever is able to be home for the kids, or has extended family, or has the funds to take them to do different enriching things themselves. So I think it does make sense for us to make sure that the community that really if we're not providing that, they really don't have other options that they can afford to give those enriching experiences for those kids. We should really make that a priority to make sure we're meeting those needs. And, the other demographics of kids, of course, are welcome, but, the alternatives for them are not working and not feeding their family, or, not having a safe place for their kids. So I think that makes sense for us to focus on that demographic and make sure that we're getting feedback from that demographic and seeing why they wouldn't use it, taking down those barriers and helping to give all of the kids an alternative for after school that they would be able to use.
Great.
And I think I'd echo what Wendy and Sal had said, is I don't know that there's a specific population. I think it's just the need. And I think, hopefully in the assessment we can go through, and there's correlation between incomes, and there's a correlation maybe with different population groups, but there'd be a part of me that if we could understand the cost, and those that are able to afford it to pay their way, and then provide scholarships based on need, that we could increase those that have a desire to be a part of the program, and then go through an assessment of where they sit and have that criteria that anyone that would like to participate could. And again, some families are going to have to make some decisions that maybe could pay a little more. They're going to have to make that determination what works best for their family. But I come back to the question number 4 in my mind is financially. Those entities, and especially government, just doesn't have the kinds of monies. The school district is truly trying to put an education program together, not an after-school program, and the city's trying to participate in a recreation, and we just don't have the kinds of monies to take out of general funding. And so, again, from my perspective, a true assessment that kind of can put needs and abilities to pay, and then come up with a scholarship piece that might go back to some fundraising. But I think the program in general needs to have consistent funding so that we don't have the highs and the lows, because the last thing we want Janet to be doing is running a program but thinking about where do I go for my next dollar tomorrow. She needs to put all of her focus on delivering what number 3, and I'm just going to jump into number 3.
I think
we have a history of a program that has worked, and it has evolved, but it's a program that works, and I have never heard anyone that comes back and say, oh, that after-school program in McMinnville doesn't work. It's working, and it's doing the thing. What I've heard is I can't get my kid in. There's a waiting list to get in. We don't have the capacity to take care of the demand that's out there. And so again, times change and assessments are good, and so timing is perfect in my mind.
Great. So in looking at that idea of, you can say, wow, it's a great program. Why do you say that? What is the success marker for you on a program like this?
Well, the increases in numbers of those attending the program would be one indicator, and obviously the satisfaction of the community in wanting to help fund it through the Mayor's Ball for many years. And a certain dissatisfaction with the fact that there hasn't been any real progress on it in the recent years because of many different factors, both with the school district and the city.
Number 2, I definitely hear Sal and Wendy on that, but I agree with the mayor of a matrix, and that if we're going to look for sustainable funding, and for the kids as well, I think it's important to have a wide variety of demographic in KOB, and I think that's a environment KOB is that kids get to be kids. There's no test scores. There's no structured curriculum. They have their stations, but they get to be kids. And so when they get to play with, somebody that maybe is not in the same math level they are or something, it really broadens their spectrum in the school setting. And so I think that's important to have that matrix, to get everybody that wants to be a part. And then how is success measured? We've had the program for so long, it'd be hard to say, well, test scores would drop. But I definitely think that that structured environment for kids to get homework done and to increase their educational fortitude, KOB plays a strong role in that. And some kids that might just ride the bus home and then they don't have structure, they don't have that tutor. You talked about people that leave a lasting impression. My first instructor at KOB was Hannah. She's now Hannah Stahl. I don't remember what her last name was then, but we called her Hannah Banana. And she always helped me with my spelling stuff.
I'd like to add something to that. I agree. I guess one of the things in that question about which population we'd like to make sure to capture, we definitely would like to make sure that we think about having it be a program that attracts all different demographics. And one of the, I was thinking about another need that we probably have in our community is the dual income that do have financial resources to be able to pay for a program that they really think is a very enriching program. It might not be a financial burden, but it's a time burden. Like they both work out of town and they can't get back in time. And if we can make it to where it's attractive enough to really compete with other, you know what I mean, to be, to address their needs with regards to having an extra enrichment for their kids, that would help for the sustainability aspect as well. So we can't get so tunnel vision that we lose out on that demographic, because there's a significant group of families in this town that also have that. They have the time burden of struggling to get home in time, and they probably they might not apply for a scholarship, but they would go to that program because of just the quality of the program. So I think we should think about that as well and how we design it. That there are definitely other families that would find it attractive that would help with the sustainability aspect.
And might I interject on that point? This is a very impressive and aggressive evaluation scope that was requested to take a look at quality, format, structure, and financing. So putting all those together, I think it should give you some great information.
Good.
I think that through the years, when I think about the KOB, is that how do you measure success is so difficult. It's very subjective. In other words, if you had an objective point, let's say you assign points to certain things, and you say, okay, if this young person goes to KOB X number of hours per week, per month, per year, then they will for sure reach this point. Okay, so that's pretty objective, but that's not available. Everybody's going to adjust and participate differently. So it's a very subjective, and I think that's a challenge of financing, is that it is very subjective. And so that's where the testimonials come in of the Adam Garvins and hundreds and thousands of others who participated. So I've always looked at that as how do you judge? How do you measure the success of the program other than look at the influence it has on young lives? And so how do you measure? It's a good question. Yeah.
Could I say one thing?
Please.
I'm just sitting here thinking about a recent awards event I went to at the library, and there were a number of children that participated in this reading program where they were to read 20 minutes every day all summer. And at least they were capable of determining by the end of the summer that on average the students increased by 2 reading levels within that period of time if they did this, and some increased as much as 2 years worth in levels of reading. So I would think there must be some means by which you could objectively tell, just simply by talking to the teachers from the year end and the beginning of the year, just how much better these kids are doing. I think there's a number of different ways of viewing it, but without a doubt, I'm sure it is tremendously enriching to these kids' lives.
Thank you. Well, to wrap up, we are definitely looking at long-term sustainable funding options, different models for you. And if you have any other thoughts for us, suggestions, directions, things to explore, staff is certainly interested in your thoughts as well as his consulting team.
I think we've achieved our goal tonight, and having an outside perspective, as you can already hear, they're really providing us with some new thoughts and some new framework to hang on the next 30-year roadmap ahead. So we're excited. We'll be back by the end of the calendar year with a final report for you all, and that's when we'll really start going through the findings and some of the recommendations. So,
Susan, do you think you'll receive some monthly updates that we could maybe share with the council, not on a face-to-face, but maybe from an email if there's some things trickling up? I know I surely would like to just receive that and put it in my file of learning so that when we get the end report, we have somewhat of a sense of where we're headed.
sure. Yeah, we will, and we can also give you some background information. Some of the reports and some of the national statistics and information that Oregon Ask has been sharing with us has been really fascinating. So we can sort of start creating that resource for everybody to get the same perspective on what's happening and where we fit and how we tailor it to our particular needs here in McMinnville.
Great. Any other questions for Adam?
So our 10-to-1 ratio, is that ethically, or is that state mandated, or what's the?
Neither. It's the 1 to 10 ratio is our goal to maintain program quality. We found that with 1 to 15, things get a little bit fuzzy and dicey. Anytime you have a fantastic role model with just a handful of kids, it's even better than having a fantastic role model who's spread out among too many kids.
Susan, do you have a different perspective on that?
Yeah, so if you're running a licensed child care program, licensed by the state of Oregon, 1 to 15 is your minimum for this age group. So they're operating above standards.
Okay. And my other question or comment would be, I definitely look forward to like cost recovery models and how various things would look for what we need to raise to be sustainable, or KOB Inc. would need to raise. But the other thing would be is, as capacity increases, like does costs go down and things like that. And so if we're right now in like this growing pains capacity level, but if we could bump up a little bit more of enrollment, would our cost per kid come down, and how all that works out. So I look forward to your guys' project. I know you'll do a great job, and can't wait to see it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have just a couple of questions actually for Janet with your long history with the program. How were changes made to the curriculum over the years? Like what was the, I guess, inspiration for some of the changes in the history of the program, curriculum-wise?
I had a chance to go to a couple of National After School Association conferences, and so anything I could pick up from that, I tried to put it to work. And anything that I read about after-school programming and youth development, if there was an idea here or there that we could use, I would try to put it to work. Certainly, the intentionality of curriculum development is not where I would like it to be. I'd like to be very more thoughtful about what we want our kids to get, and to bring curriculum together that is proven to work, is effective.
So you feel like it was more of an organic process, and
Yes.
this will be more of a real strategic process where you feel like it will. And then, have you found any? Do you have any? Have you found any mechanisms for getting feedback, like the measuring success? Have you tried anything with regards to that you can feed into this process that would help
Not recently. We have some evaluations from a few years back, and the Oregon Ask folks have come up with surveys that will go out to parents and to kids. And so we're looking forward to seeing that feedback as well.
Okay. And there will probably be mechanisms for us to continually get feedback as part of this. So that's great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, again, Janet, thank you for your sustainabilities in what you're doing. I mean, I think your leadership has allowed us to continue and do what we need to do, and I don't know that we share that thanks enough, but thank you, because you are today Kids on the Block. And your vision and your passion is well felt. And so, again, just in front of the council, I personally would like to thank you for all that you're doing. And as we're taking this into the next level, it's good to have you at the helm. So,
Thank you.
again, thank you. Thanks, Susan, and all of you for your input this evening.
Thank you.
Any other items that need to be brought up at the work session? If not, then we will, we've got about 5 minutes before our regular session starts, so we'll take a few minutes break. 2018 City Council, and I'll call this meeting to order. Let's start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Council President Menke will lead us in that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we're going to start with a proclamation, and so I'll come down. Jody from MEDP, if you'd come up, and I'll do the proclamation, and then I'll give you an opportunity to say a few words. Whereas manufacturing makes a very significant contributions to the national, state, and local economy, and whereas our community is fortunate to be the home of over 90 world-class manufacturing companies, and whereas those manufacturing companies add to the vitality, prosperity of our community by employing over 3,400 people with a 15 million average annual payroll. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim October the 5th, 2018 as McMinnville Made in conjunction with the National Manufacturing Day. And in witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this the 25th day of September 2018, signed Scott A. Hill. Jody? Jody and her group do such good work, and I'm sure she wants to share just a little bit of the vision and kind of some of the successes that we've had. So, Jody?
Thank you very much. I wanted to thank you for once again proclaiming National Manufacturing Day. It's an important day that supports our manufacturers here locally, but also nationally, to elevate the opportunities for youth and for others in the value that manufacturing brings to a community. Those jobs tend to have higher wages and more growth opportunity. So to have a strong economic vitality in a community, you need to have a strong manufacturing base. That is proven over and over again, and McMinnville is very lucky to have that strong base here. So tonight I've provided you with some things that are McMinnville made. These were contracted. We went with Golden Valley Brew Pub. We had a designer create a label that specifically calls out the competitive advantages of McMinnville as a community. We've had these for a year. We've given them out to site selectors, people visiting our community, development people, real estate firms. We've given them out to everyone from the governor's office down. We want people to know that McMinnville is a great place to have a business and grow a business. So you'll see there's on the front is what we call the exclamation point of Alpine Avenue, and that's Buchanan Cellars. We have a rich history in agriculture, but it's also a history of innovation. And so you'll see over the next year, we're going to be calling that out very intentionally. On the side are the competitive advantages of McMinnville, and then on the other is the story of Peter, who is one of the first brewmasters in the state of Oregon. He was one of the first 12. So we think that that is a really important story. And again, everything's McMinnville made. The other thing in the companion marketing piece was a piece done by our intern this last summer, and this is called Authentic City. We wanted to call out and define what it is to have a quality of life. And so these are stories and photographs of the elements that are unique to McMinnville that really define who we are as a community. We've also used this as a companion recruitment piece to show people that not only is it a great place to have a business because of the cost, but these are the people that you're going to be working with and be in our community. So we really are quite proud of both of those pieces. We will be honoring and celebrating our our manufacturers at our annual awards banquet, and that is a lunch on October 12th. We hope you all can join us. We have some great surprises in line, and we are once again honoring several of our manufacturers. So thank you again for recognizing the importance of this sector and your continued support for our work and champions for the business community. Thank you.
And as I would say, there's more to come. That's the exciting piece of it, is we're going through our strategic plan, and we're having an opportunity to look at our focus on economic development, business development, and what we want to look like in the future. So, Jody, again, thank you. We are to that point in our agenda this evening where we are going to take comments from citizens. And so any interested individual that would like to address the council can speak on any topic other than matters in litigation, quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for a public hearing at some future date. We'll have you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and so I'll just I've got a number of individuals that have filled out the public comment card, and so Leanna, would you come up first and introduce yourself and address the council just right up here?
Thank you all. I'm actually here today to address something that is obviously not in litigation, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I'd like to present this small piece of paper, if you will. Could I bring it up to you? So this is something I received from the postmaster at the post office. I have this issue to address because it's been brought up by several residents of our ward. It was actually brought up last year to our council members, and I've spoken to the postmaster here and in other cities. I know it's been an issue with other residents in other areas in our city, as well as other cities. But as we understand things, it's a federal crime to open anyone else's mail. It's also something that you won't tolerate, the obstruction of someone receiving their mail. The U.S. Mail Delivery Service is set in every city to be able to deliver to residents in that city. However, we've approached a significant amount of missed mail delivery because our postal service workers can't get to the mailbox. There's a requirement previously that was 30 feet. Now they said because of the vehicles that they have, they can turn on a 15 feet radius. So they actually need 15 feet on either side of the mailbox in order to accommodate that mail delivery. So what I'm asking is, because the mail is being prevented from being delivered, the post office gives people flyers, to this flyer specifically, to say that they can't deliver the mail for this reason because they're parked there. But what I want to ask is why we aren't applying that simple fix. To assist our postal carriers, we need to be able to enable them to do their job to deliver the mail. When people park in front of those mailboxes, the curbs could be easily painted with a caution that we put out in front of fire hydrants, which are used occasionally or in emergencies. But these mail carriers are delivering mail every day. So these mailboxes need to be cleared and unobstructed every day. So I'd like to consider this as a priority. If we aren't issuing fines for this parking, obstructing a federal post office delivery, then I would encourage our city council to seek a better solution. I would ask that we approach this and adopt an ordinance, or perhaps pursue proper resolution to meet the needs of our residents now. I'm asking the questions to help bring the attention to the issue. One that I believe falls under the responsibility of our city to enforce. And I appreciate hearing your thoughts on it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanna.
Ooh, perfect timing.
Yep. Again, thank you, and we'll...
Absolutely. Would you like me to
We'll just
rename?
take the comment, and then we'll follow up with staff.
Great.
Thank you. Denise? Welcome. It's good to see you. Please state your name, and we've got your address. And
Denise Murphy, and I just came to thank the City Council for passing Ordinance 5053 back on June 12th of this year. That pertained to the parking garage, which had been a mess for about 2 years. And thanks to Chief Scales drafting that initial ordinance and then you all providing guidance and then voting to pass it, it is like an entirely different building. The tents are gone, the trash is gone, the bottles are gone. I can find a parking space because people aren't camping in them. And on top of that, I can whip into a space now without worrying that I'm going to run over somebody who's sleeping under a blanket. So again, just thank you. I know a lot of times out of sight, out of mind. It's been 3 months, but I appreciate every day that you all have solved this problem, that it's no longer a problem. So thank you.
thank you, Denise. Scott?
Kind of funny. Hi, my name's Scott Thorkelson. I'm the manager of the Fastenal store in the industrial park. I sell industrial goods to the manufacturers, mostly in the industrial park. And so it's interesting, here it is, National Manufacturing Day, and we're honoring them. And I am here to say, I'm here to talk about the RV park. And as Grace was just saying, how fantastic it was is that they are not there. Unfortunately, they are now in our beautiful industrial park. I work in the industrial park. I go by the free RV park 6-7 times a day. I've put together about 4 little topics. I'm going to try to go through them quickly. First one is safety. The spot that goes down in front of Mac Water and Light, that is one of the only 2 spots to get down to Joe Dancer Park. I can't tell you how many thousands of children are down at Joe Dancer Park playing. And with only 2 exits, I have sometimes seen 30, 40 cars lined up to get out. When I was going down to get to my children, there was a person coming out from the right to the left with a casserole dish. She was going from her RV to it wasn't an RV on the other side, but it was a structure that they were having a community gathering. She looked at me, I slammed on my brakes. She looked at me saying, "What the heck are you doing?" And I wanted to say to her, "What are you doing? This is a public city. I'm trying to go to my son's cross-country meet. Why are you bringing a casserole dish? Why do you feel so comfortable with a casserole dish to go across the street?" When I came back up, I said, I wanted to document this and video it. And when I was doing that, the entire crew started saying, "F you, F you." I've got it on my smartphone. If you would like to hear it, I'm sure you can figure out what they were saying to me. But I was going, wow, you guys are that empowered. You are that strong. You are that brazen. Gutsy. All right, sanitation. Of course, you guys know there is no restrooms down there. I don't know where everyone peeing is. Someone told me that actually that's not even against the law. But we shouldn't have people peeing outside. People have been down there for months, and there is no indication. When I talk to the police, and when they give a citation, they just say, put it on the pile, because everyone knows they are not going to be towed. Nothing is going to happen to them, and it's a big joke. I don't even know why maybe we issue them anymore, because no one's going to do anything about it. That's why I feel I need to be here today, because as Grace was happy to have it out of the city, unfortunately now it's in the industrial park. And no one lives in the industrial park. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you at 5 o'clock when everyone goes home, when I go home, no one is back there. That goes to my third one on security. This is here because 2 days ago, this was kind of like the final straw on the donkey's back. My fuel line was cut in one of my work trucks, okay? This never happened before it was out. Before that, I had a water issue where people would come up and take water. They would turn off my water to my company and fill up their RV tanks. Thirdly, is interesting, like I said, I sell industrial supplies to the very people. Viesco Concrete came to me. I was putting up a sign saying, security, even though I didn't have a security, I was putting up a sign that said, security cameras are watching you. He goes, I need 4 of those, I need 10 more, and I need huge signs to say, danger, no trespassing. I'm going, whoa, you are freaking fired up. What's going on? He goes, I am sick and tired. I have a concrete tower that's maybe 50, 60 feet. Every night they come over, they think it's a jungle gym. They RV people. I can tell you, we just paid $25,000 for a new fence. I've been here for 19 years, and he's telling this to me. I want to say, you should come with me tonight at 7 o'clock and be telling you guys this. He goes, but no, I spent $25,000 to put a new fence around my facility because every single night they just walk across the field and take everything out of my stuff. And I am just so freaking tired. I thought this was going to be done. And who thinks this is a good idea? I think they said maybe a week or 2 weeks, but this is going on months and months. I said, it's crazy. I'm going to be going down there. I'll share your story. They should know.
We're getting close to our 3 minutes, Scott.
Okay. Last one, I was talking to a police officer. He goes, it's too bad McMinnville now has the reputation of being homeless or gypsy friendly. I can tell you the same thing is that when Jody goes around and tours our beautiful industrial park, and we still have lots of vacancies available, we're larger places, Jody is not proud of our RV park. I'm sure when she goes around and tours, she does not say, hey, let's go down Joe Dancer and let me show you this. No, she is skirting way over here and going over here and saying, don't you look at any of that. But I would just like to say reputation, image, and right now our image is that those RVs are have the most importance. Oh, last thing, a solution. I say, I just read Grapes of Wrath. Why don't we go with a poor farm? Everyone has, let's get some land out there. And if you have an RV, you work for an hour. If you need a tent, if you need food, we'll do it. We'll but we need to solve a problem. People need to take responsibility. If you don't have it, we could even get the bus to say, we'll go out there every 2 or 3 times a day, so we can get some interaction. That's what I'd like to say. If you have any questions for me.
It's just a comment time, but thank you, Scott, for bringing that to our attention, and we're listening. And sorry about the cut fuel line.
Unfortunately, it was just, fill out some paperwork, and we can't do anything.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Kyra? Kara? Excuse me. Welcome.
So my name is Kira Barsati, and I'm a citizen here along with my husband. We raise 2 children who go to the McMinnville School District. I actually work for a local nonprofit where we help families. We keep children safe and families together. My husband is actually a firefighter here in town. He's one of the few sitting behind you tonight, and he's worked for the city of McMinnville for about 5 years now, and he's been a firefighter for about a decade. I'm here because I was incredibly encouraged last week when Coin 6 came to town and was doing a story on the staffing shortages at the fire station. And I understand that the News Register ran a similar article or expanded upon that today. I was excited because I've known for quite a while, living with a firefighter, being a wife, and a citizen, I've known about these shortages and I've heard about them. But I have to say that I was disappointed. I was disappointed because I felt like when my husband came home that evening that nothing was being done. The city has grown so much in the past decade, yet our public safety structure is stuck in the past. I know that you've heard the statistics many times from Chief Lightfoot. I'm not here on behalf of any firefighters. This is me as a wife and a mother and a citizen of our city. The number of first responders in our city has not increased since 2009. I know you all know this. I don't have to explain it to you. Yet the number of calls and incidents of businesses and tourism has increased steadily over that time. I don't know that many of our business owners or our citizens know that, and again, that's why I was encouraged. You've heard the facts. You know that there are inadequate, or you've heard from Chief Lightfoot about the inadequate staffing of fire stations, of personnel, of their ability to meet these demands. And I know that firsthand that our firefighters are burned out and exhausted. They're trying to meet unrealistic demands being put on our public safety system. And this is why there's high turnover. It doesn't have much to do with the fact that Portland and Clackamas and Tualatin Valley is hiring. Yes, that's true. But I know firsthand that it's because their home life and their health is being put at increased risks. And those that have left, because I've talked to them and I've talked to their wives and their husbands, it's because they can't continue to operate under these current conditions. In fact, they respond to so many calls that they're on track to run nearly 8,500 and 9,000 this year alone. Yet they still respond day after day because that's the oath they took. I have the utmost respect for all of you. My mother was actually a city councilwoman for 16 years in my hometown of Idaho, and I understand the demands put on you. But I know your obligation is to know the facts as reported by Chief Lightford. It's your responsibility to know and act diligently with these facts in mind. And as outlined as last week during your open session, our current model is not adequate for our community's size and needs. So my question is, what's come of your strategic plan with regards to EMS and fire safety, and what are you doing now? Not 5 years from now, not looking at a public district. What are you doing now to stop the hemorrhaging across the street? Because I know it's having an impact. It has an impact of everybody sitting in the back of this room. And they need the support from you. They need you to listen, and they need you to do the right thing and act. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that now takes us to our consent agenda. And this evening we have two items on our consent agenda. The first is the approval of the minutes from our July 10th work session and regular meeting and July 18th City Council work session. We also have under consideration an OLCC license request, winery new outlet from the Muddy Frogwater Country LLC located at 323 Southeast Baker Street. Is there any counselor that would request to have any items taken off the consent agenda and heard in the regular place on the agenda? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
So move.
And a second. Kelly has moved and Sal has seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. We have passed the consent agenda 5-0 this evening. That takes us to our first resolution this evening, which is resolution number 2018-53, a resolution approving the dedication of a right-of-way from city property for the construction of a portion of Northeast Yawn Ranch Road. And Susan, if you'd come up and address the council on this.
Sure, Mayor and Council, this is a little bit of progress we have to report on the Northwest Neighborhood Park project. As you all know, we went out for bid over the summer and got a really high responses that were out of our budget range. But we were making progress in other ways, and that's the construction of Yawn Ranch Road. And we need to dedicate just like any developer, we had to develop and build and construct and dedicate the road frontage there to serve the park. So this is a logistical piece of that. If I can also just give you another update about the project that this is associated with. We have retooled the design of the park and are going to go out for another neighborhood meeting in the next week or two to let them see the new plans, and then we plan on going out to bid sometime in November and hope to get a better economic situation for the responses to the RFP. So,
Thank you. Any questions for Susan?
I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Alan?
Susan, thank you for that. So the bids are coming in too high for our budget, is that right?
They did over the summer, yes.
Yeah.
We went out to bid, I think it was in June, and got them back. They were too high for our budget, based on the design at the time.
Yeah, based on the design, so you're moderating that design, taking some of the high-end stuff out of it possibly? And
Yes, we are looking at a couple of different scenarios and a couple of different ways of doing some of the grading on the site to save some money. We've reduced some of the concrete on the site to save some money and just done some other tweaks to try and get within budget.
Yeah, I think that park's important. There's been a lot of people in that area who have really participated in moving that along, citizens. And that they just want a nice open green space to be in, so whatever
A
it's
lot of
worth.
donations as well, a lot of contributions from folks and fundraising efforts to really move that park along, so we're excited to keep going. We're still going.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any other comments from council? Adam?
I would just like to say that I know it's been a long time coming. As a Quanian, we've done a lot of fundraising over the years for this park, and I know the overbids was discouraging to some of our member base, but I think they'll be very excited to know that we made a little bit of headway. And of that redesign and retool, was any of that stuff like one-off or just totally custom? Did that drive the cost up, or was it just typical construction costs in this economy?
We really, with the design team and the maintenance staff, we really looked at a lot of that. And we did find some things that we over-designed. So we had some patterns in some of the Forever Lawn surface that created some spatial separation. That added quite a bit of cost that we didn't know at the time, based on the 16-foot wide rolls of the Forever Lawn. And so we've been able to have a lot, based on what the contractors responded with, we've been able to make a lot smarter choices.
And then the second thing to that, just lost it, but when do we anticipate to go out for rebid again?
November, yeah.
November. And
So
then that
soon.
would be construction at the spring season?
We are hoping to leave it a pretty open-ended timeline so that it can fit within someone's regular construction schedule. We've been talking to different contractors and think that if we'd put a pretty hard line on when the construction needed to be completed when we went out in the spring. And we think being more flexible about the timeline, we've been touching base with the granting agencies and others to make sure we can be a little more flexible. So we're going to let the idea is that we would let them tell us when they can complete it by, knowing that, there's a reasonable window of 2 years-ish, but to get underway pretty quickly. So we're going to be more flexible when we go out and hope that'll end up in a better bid.
And then last question, you talked about changing the grading style. Is that going to put us at any higher risk of like the substance that our parks being built on being not as long-term or not have the longevity to hold up, or the ground might settle differently or anything like that? Or are we still going to have a pretty stable park foundation?
What I meant by that is we had a lot of different grading and elevation. We were moving a lot of earth in the original plan, and that came in at a huge cost. And so we've re-engineered some of it to make it a little flatter. And we'll still be engineering to the same standards and making sure that we're doing everything we need to do to make it a safe park.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just one more question from me.
Go ahead,
Mayor.
Alan.
Susan, on the grants, when do they expire? Can we count on those being available when we're ready to move forward on them?
We can. The state in particular has been very helpful, and they're seeing the same problem we had all over the state. And they've been very amenable to, as a matter of fact, they encouraged us to look at they're the one of the groups that said, go farther out in terms of your construction window so that you can get a better construction bid on that. So they've been very generous and very helpful.
Just to get an idea of the gap that we need to close, how much are we off?
When the bids came in, we were, I think the lowest one was about $500,000 over what we had.
$500,000.
Mm-hmm. So we have about a $1.4 million budget for this park. So we had a healthy design.
All right. Got the challenge ahead of you then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we're going to do it, and it's going to be an excellent neighborhood park, and we are still focused on the accessibility and the inclusion piece of it, and it's going to be a really great neighborhood park.
Yeah, I'm sure that the whole neighborhood would come out and participate with shovels and rakes if they had to.
Mm-hmm. We'll look forward to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments? Hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2018-53.
So
moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Adam and seconded by Alan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? 5-0, it passes. So Resolution 2018-53 passes. That takes us to this evening, reports from counselors on committee and board assignments. And so I'm going to just move it I'll start with Wendy, and then we'll go Alan, and then we'll go down to Adam and move up. Wendy?
Okay, I don't really have anything to report because we haven't had a meeting. So our first meeting, our meeting was canceled for this month, and then next meeting is the first Wednesday of October.
Alan?
There's an affordable housing task force meeting coming up.
I think it's tomorrow at 10.
That may be true. Let me see here. Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Tomorrow at 10. Thank you.
Adam?
At YCOM, we met, had a report from Patty on our new system coming online, and nothing real crazy to report. We do have a module we'll probably have to pick up, and it's a module that only, out of all the users of YCOM, only the city of McMinnville utilizes that type of data download, and it's related to our EMS system, so there's pretty high usage of that, and for efficiency it will be something that needs to be picked up. But when TriTech bid our system, they didn't notify us that it was going to be needed, so Patty's in negotiations with how much of that YCOM or the city of McMinnville will actually be on the hook for. She feels fairly confident she'll be able to get most of that comp. There's just going to be an ongoing service fee year after year for that technology. Other than that, everything at YCOM seems to be running pretty smooth with this new system coming online. I think they've been doing some load testing, and our initial go live date, I believe, was October 1st, but that's not going to happen, hopefully by the end of the year. And other than that, I don't know where you guys sat on the work session we had last week, but I definitely think we need to do something for staffing levels before next fiscal year. Mm-hmm. What that is or how we fund that, I don't have that answer, but I would like it to be top of mind for this council.
Yeah, I think that work session was very instructional and helpful, bringing us up to speed on that. And I think I've shared with Jeff that we need to move and bring it back to a discussion level after the workshop, and we'll probably do that on his return.
Thank you.
Sal?
Yeah, I just want to go on record as seconding that point of view, Adam. Thank you for bringing that up. Second point, the Affordable Housing Task Force meeting tomorrow had as part of its agenda a legislative concept that was put together by Chuck Darnell. Just fair warning, there's an important deadline for introducing legislation for the next legislative session, which is this Friday. Okay. So we need to get at least the concepts, and it can be a placeholder, but get that out the door if we want it considered in the upcoming legislative session.
Thank you for that. And again, I think there'll be a number of us at that meeting tomorrow. Kelly?
Just briefly on Visit McMinnville, we're going full on to let you know there's going to be a meeting McMinnville is hosting of the Oregon DMO Association December 3rd through 6th, and the Oregon Transportation, OTC, or no, Oregon Tourism. Yeah, Oregon Tourism Council and the Oregon DMO group is going to be meeting at the same time. Great opportunity to show off McMinnville and all that it can do. We're focusing on a branding effort and should get some results from that probably before the first of the year. So lots of things happening, a lot of good things with the Visit McMinnville.
And just one thing that I pulled away from that meeting was fiscally they're back on track where they need to be. We really kind of, the way the funding happens with the tax going in there, we're a good 2 months, sometimes 3 months behind. And so they really did kind of a fiscal year-end accountability and going the direction that the council would want them to be going. So as they make their presentation of the council, I think we'll be very pleased from that perspective.
Yeah, things are much happier this year.
Had an opportunity, Kelly and I, to go to the landscaping review committee, and again, it's just a great opportunity to bring some very qualified committee people to the table looking at reviewing landscaping for new building and replacement of trees. That went well this month. Just to remind, Kelly and I will be headed tomorrow off to the League of Oregon Cities annual conference that'll be held in Eugene through Saturday, and expect to, we're involved in a lot of very, very timely and good meetings that are going to be there. We'll also receive a safety award as a city. We're aware of that. So a number of things from that front. Susan, again, you've had quite a bit of time to share with us today. I did make mention for those that came to our work session that we had the opportunity to meet with the school district earlier today under Susan and Mary Alice Russell's direction to talk about KOB, and I think we've built a real strong communication and working relationship through that. So thank you for moving forward and bringing all the parties to the table. I think we had representation from every elementary school in the school district, and we had a great dialogue. So anything else that you would have for us?
I just want to mention that we've had a great volunteer effort over at Wortman Park. If anybody's been there recently, we had an Eagle Scout, Oliver, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his last name right. It's either Heedy or Hetty, came out there. And
It is Oliver Hetty, yes.
Yeah, came out there and did a fantastic job. Lynette Noble and I worked with him. He put new signs, got the signs built for free, new signs for each tee box of the disc golf course out there, and put numbers on top of each of the baskets as well, and really worked hard. Hadn't played disc golf before, and went out there and learned to play disc golf and embraced the project, dug the holes for the signs and the poles, and it looks amazing out there. So we're excited to let people know, get back out there if you haven't played disc golf out there for a while. It's looking fantastic, and Oliver did a great job for us, so we're excited about that.
Great. Melissa? David? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting. We are going to move into executive session under ORS 192-.662. 6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. And so we'll go ahead and close this meeting and move into the conference room for executive session.